Klaus lived with his mother in a world choked by dust. The sun, a pale ghost in the sky, barely pierced the gloom. Gone were the vibrant greens and blues of stories whispered by the elders. In their place stretched a canvas of grey and brown, a constant reminder of the old world lost. Every morning Klaus woke before the sun even tried to rise. He helped his mother gather scraps for their meagre breakfast. Their small dwelling, cobbled together from rusted metal sheets, rattled in the wind, yet within its walls love flickered like a stubborn candle flame. After breakfast, Klaus ventured out into the wasteland. He scavenged for anything useful: metal scraps, pieces of plastic, even rubber bands. Every little bit earned him a few coins at the market. Coins he carefully tucked away, feeding a secret dream. His mother, her face etched with worry lines, would often watch him leave. Her heart ached for him. She knew of his dream, of the impossible gift he yearned for, and she, in her own quiet way, was determined to make it a reality. Klaus had heard whispers of a legend, a whisper that ignited a spark in his soul. It spoke of celestial water, a liquid so potent it could awaken dormant abilities, abilities that lay dormant in every soul, a legacy of the world before. He dreamed of tasting this water, of feeling the power surge within him. He imagined a world where he wasn't just Klaus, the scavenger, but Klaus, the something more, someone who could protect his mother, who could bring back a sliver of hope to their desolate lives. Driven by this dream, Klaus worked tirelessly. He ignored the taunts of other boys, the ones who had given up hope. He saved every coin, his heart heavy with the weight of his desire. He didn't see the way his mother sometimes went without, the sacrifices she made, her love for him a silent symphony. Unbeknownst to Klaus, his mother had a secret of her own. She too had heard the whispers of the celestial water, and she knew of a hidden trader, a woman who dealt in whispers and shadows. This woman, they said, could procure anything for a price. Klaus woke on his birthday, his heart unusually heavy. He was turning 13 today, the age when most kids in the stories awakened their abilities, yet he felt no different. The same skinny boy, the same gnawing emptiness where power should reside. His mother, sensing his mood, tried to cheer him up. She cooked his favorite breakfast, a thin gruel sweetened with salvaged honey. She even presented him with a gift, a small carving of a wolf crafted from a piece of scrap metal. Klaus tried to smile, to force down the bitter disappointment. He hugged his mother, the metal wolf cold against his palm. He told himself it was just a silly legend, this business of awakenings, but deep down, a part of him felt a pang of loss, a fear that he was destined for ordinariness in an extraordinary world. The day dragged on, each hour a reminder of his perceived failure. Klaus helped his mother with her chores, his usual enthusiasm replaced by a listless silence. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a familiar despair settled over him. As the last rays of the sun painted the sky, Klaus's mother called him inside. She had a small fire going, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows on their worn furniture. In her hands, she held a small vial, the liquid inside shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Klaus stared at the vial, his breath catching in his throat. He recognized the liquid instantly, his heart pounding against his ribs. "Mother," he breathed, his voice barely a whisper. "What is that?" His mother smiled, a rare sight that lit up her tired features. "Happy birthday, my love," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I believe this is what you've been saving for." Tears welled up in Klaus's eyes, blurring his vision. It couldn't be true. The celestial water here in his home, a gift from his mother who had sacrificed so much. But how? He stammered, his mind reeling. She simply shook her head, her eyes filled with love. "It doesn't matter," she said, pressing the vial into his hands. "Drink, my love, embrace your destiny." Klaus's hands trembled as he took the vial. It felt cool and smooth against his calloused skin. The liquid inside shimmered, a promise of power waiting to be unleashed. He looked at his mother, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and anxiety, and knew he couldn't disappoint her. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and brought the vial to his lips. The taste was surprisingly bitter, like ashes mixed with the faintest hint of citrus. It hit his tongue with a jolt, sending a shiver down his spine. He swallowed, waiting for the transformation he had dreamt of for so long, but nothing happened. Minutes ticked by, each one an agonizing eternity. The bitter taste lingered in his mouth, a cruel reminder of his dashed hopes. He opened his eyes, his shoulders slumping with disappointment. "I don't feel anything," he whispered, his voice heavy with defeat. His mother placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Give it time," she said, though he could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Legends say it affects everyone differently." Section 6. The fires within. Despite his mother's reassurance, doubt gnawed at Klaus. He felt a strange pressure building in his head, a dull ache behind his eyes. He tried to ignore it, to cling to the hope that the celestial water was simply working its magic slowly. He went outside, seeking solace in the familiar sight of the wasteland. The sky was a tapestry of stars, their light strangely intense tonight. Klaus sat on a broken-down vehicle, the cool metal a comfort against his burning skin. And that's when he felt it. A flicker deep within him, like a spark catching on dry tinder. It began as a gentle warmth spreading from his chest, but quickly grew in intensity. The warmth turned into a burning sensation, a wildfire consuming him from the inside out. Klaus gasped, clutching his chest. His vision blurred, the world around him swimming in and out of focus. He felt his mother's hand on his back, her voice a soothing murmur in the chaos engulfing him, but he could barely register her presence. So consumed was he by the inferno raging within. Section 7. A symphony of senses. The world around Klaus exploded in a cacophony of senses. The dull browns and greys of the wasteland were suddenly awash in vibrant colors, hues he had never imagined before. The air, usually thick with dust and despair, hummed with an unseen energy. He could hear the whisper of the wind as it danced through the ruins, the rustle of small creatures he had never noticed before. His sense of smell was heightened, almost overwhelming. He could smell the metallic tang of rust, the earthy aroma of decay, but also the sweet scent of night-blooming flowers clinging to life in this desolate world. He could even smell his mother's love for him, a tangible thing that brought tears to his eyes. The physical sensations were just as intense. He felt the rough texture of the ground beneath his fingertips, the coolness of the metal he was sitting on. He could feel the beat of his own heart, a powerful drum against his ribs. It was all too much, a symphony of sensations that threatened to overwhelm him. Through it all, the burning within him intensified. It wasn't a painful burning anymore, but a wild, exhilarating energy that coursed through his veins. It was power, raw and untamed, and it was glorious. Section 8. Power awakened. As quickly as it had started, the sensory overload began to recede. The colors softened. The sounds became more bearable. Klaus opened his eyes, blinking against the starlight. He looked down at his hands, expecting them to be different, glowing something. They looked the same. But as he watched, a small spark of light ignited above his palm. It danced and flickered, casting a warm glow on his calloused skin. He reached out with his other hand, hesitantly touching the light. It felt warm, alive, pulsing with the same energy that still thrummed in his veins. He laughed, a sound of pure joy and disbelief. He had awakened his ability. He wasn't sure what it was, what he could do, but he had power. He could feel it, a part of him waiting to be explored, to be unleashed. He looked at his mother, her face awash in tears and a smile so bright it outshone the stars. She knew. She had always known he was capable of this, even when he doubted himself. He stood up, his legs still shaky, and pulled her into a hug. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for believing." Section 9. Into the abyss of change. The world around Klaus began to spin. The power that had awakened within him, now a roaring torrent in his veins, was becoming too much to contain. He stumbled back, his vision blurring again. He heard his mother's voice, filled with concern, but it sounded distant, muffled. He tried to focus, to regain control, but the power had a life of its own. It surged through him, pulling him down into a swirling abyss of light and energy. He felt himself losing his grip on consciousness, the world around him fading to black, just before the darkness claimed him completely. He heard his mother's voice one last time. It was no longer filled with concern, but with a fierce, unwavering pride. "This is only the beginning, my love," she said, her voice echoing in the void. "Embrace the change, become the light." And with that, Klaus surrendered to the darkness, his heart pounding with the promise of a new dawn. The world had changed. He had changed. and he was ready to face whatever the future held, armed with the power that was his birthright.